Football on off the ball.
With William Hill, you can boost your winnings on every game with new Bet Builder Extra. Only with William Hill. Download the app today. 18 plus gamblingcare.ie.
This is News Talk.
Right, so just over a week ago, you might have seen the news that Irish footballers Amber Barrett and Claire O'Riordan became Belgian Cup champions. They sealed the deal for Standard Liège against Anderlecht on a 1-0 scoreline, and I'm delighted to say that both of them are with us on the line. Amber, Claire, you're very welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're not too bad. Happy to take the call.
Very good. How has the last week been, Amber? Has it involved partying every single night, or is it straight back to business, straight back into the league?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't really get much of a celebration afterwards because we're in the, I suppose, business end of the season now, and we still have games to play in the league that are, you know, we're still in with a shout of getting a European spot. So I think the concentration to that fell straight away after the game, looking to the next game, which unfortunately didn't go our way, but we still have a lot of games to play yet.
Claire, your memories of, what is it, yesterday week at this point, Easter Monday, is it one of these moments that's a season kind of coming to fruition, giving you a few points off the top in the league? Or what are the mix of emotions that you feel after getting the job done against Anderlecht that day?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're delighted to finally get another trophy here for the club. You know, they were very successful a couple of years ago, winning it back then as well. So I think for us, we had a very good cup run, which was really important because obviously it's a knockout competition. So it was every game that came along, we had to get a job done, whether it took 90 minutes or we even went to 120 minutes. Thankfully, it didn't go to penalties in any of those games, but in terms of the emotions, it was, of course, you're at a high celebrating for so many hours for the rest of the evening after the game. But then again, you have to kind of try and bring yourself back down because you have so many important games coming up. So unfortunately, it didn't last too long, but we definitely enjoyed it while we could.
Was the match itself very much a backs to the wall job, or were Anderlecht fortunate to get away with a 1-0 defeat, Claire?
Well, it's a tough game because we were going into the game as underdogs. Yeah. Anderlecht have been the champions here for so many years. So it was two tough teams. And again, you're looking at it's an El Clasico here. So rival teams coming up against each other. There's a lot of emotions being played in the game. So we kind of knew it was going to be a battle. Probably suited us a bit more in that sense because I think we have quite a physical team in moments, but they're an exceptional team. Their footballers, the way that they play, it can be really challenging to play against. But we had occasions throughout the game, and I think we managed it really well. And even coming to the dying minutes of the game, you know, I think when you look back on it, we weren't going to concede. I couldn't see it happening. Everyone played as a unit, coming in from the bench, the instructions coming from the coaches. So yeah, it was great.
Am I right in saying you're playing them again tomorrow night?
Yeah, we have a double header against them now, so we're playing them tomorrow night and we're playing them again on Saturday. So right. It's like an English week here. I think the other teams will be playing as well tomorrow. So it's like Amber said, it's the business end of the season, so the games come thick and fast and you have to be as ready as you can be.
It's really interesting what your experience is of the Clasico. Like, personally speaking, I've got very little knowledge of what the relationship is between Liège and Anderlecht. Amber, can you try and describe that to the listener in terms of what that rivalry is like?
It's probably the closest to a Celtic Rangers in Belgium, I would say. So even just to give you a little bit of insight, the original fixture was set for a different game in Brussels in a different stadium. And there was issues a few years ago with fans clashing. So the Brussels police decided they weren't going to allow fans to go to the game. So it was only a couple of weeks ago that they actually managed to change the venue to Leuven, which where the final took place. And thankfully the crowd was able to come, but both sets of supporters were kept on separate sides of the stadium, which, you know, usually they try and kind of fill out one side of the stadium, but they kept it very separate. And honestly, I think it probably worked very well in our favour because for whatever number of supporters turned out for us that day, they were exceptional. They were loud. They jeered every Anderlecht mistake, and just little moments like that really, they lift a team. And the roar, of course, when the final whistle goes and the celebrations after, like, it's so nice to have such a sea of red on one side, and on the other side we felt like the Anderlecht crowd were very quiet. So I think that moments like that definitely works in our favour.
Because in the women's game, Standard Liège, pardon the pun, are the standard setters. They have the most titles. They are the most decorated club in Belgium, right? They
are, yes. And I think with the cups, I think they're one of the, I think they've won, I think Anderlecht, if they had beat us last week, would have equalled the amount of titles that we have.
Right.
But I think now that we won that, we've gone 2 ahead. But I think, like, it's great to have history and it's great to have that behind you. But I think for me, it's very important that, the gap between Standard and Anderlecht maybe over the last years has grown. And I think that we have tried since we've come in to close that gap, and I suppose get everybody here on board with the fact that we can go back on top. And of course, it takes time for that to happen. I think when you look at the squads that Anderlecht have produced over the years, like, they've had top international players playing for them, and they have players on the bench that might probably start for every other team in the league. So I think when you have that there, for us, it's important that we kind of push the standards, push what we feel is what's capable, and I think get everybody on board with that too.
Is it a resources thing that has allowed Anderlecht to become the behemoth of the league in the modern game? As I say, you guys have obviously the most titles historically. Claire, what's been your experience as to why Anderlecht have sort of taken control in recent years?
Well, I think Amber touched on it, the personnel that they have within their squads and the attraction that they have to bring in other players that are coming through. Players that Amber said that would probably play in any other team across the league. But again, they're filling up their squad. So it's quite difficult to try and pull and attract players to come here. I think in terms of, like, when they see that the Anderlecht and the Leuven teams have their style of play and how they play the football and the structure and programs that they have in place. But I think that that's something that the club here have been pushing to better in recent years, and I can even see that improvement from when myself and Amber arrived just under 2 years ago, that they want to go on that trajectory forward of making the women's game here more professional and more attractive to bring in that type of personnel to be able to have a fully equipped squad to go and compete.
And where do you think that journey is at the moment when it comes to making the women's game more attractive and making squads more able to compete, Claire?
Well, I think a big factor in the women's game here in Belgium is the professional aspect of it. So being able to have full-time coaching staff available to the players to be able to complete a full training week is massive, and having those resources of video analysis, your medical staff, and everything that really builds up a coaching team, that then the players can benefit from that and having more contact time, and not only with the football but with the coaches and the resources available to learn more and to be exposed to learning.
And is this point in your career, Claire, the most exposure you've had to a fully professional life? Is it just the way the game has gone at the moment? Are you now almost at the peak of your powers and I guess the peak of your exposure to all these resources?
Well, I've been fortunate enough that I've been playing abroad this is my 7th season, so spending 4 years in Germany playing in the Frauen Bundesliga was the start of that. And when I first went over, my eyes lit up because I saw things happening that I wasn't used to seeing before. And I think each year, with the support of the club in wanting to progress the women's programs, you can see how things can improve and get better. But again, it comes, unfortunately, down to finances, which lack massively in the women's game. And I think that that's a big barrier across probably every team and club across the world. So the more finances that can go into a club, the more that you can do. And I know here, for example, that that's definitely a direction that they want to push forward in terms of creating those types of programs and structures and having those types of resources to have a fully equipped professional setup.
Right. And Amber, I do want to get your take on the same thing in a minute. But Claire, when it comes to, I guess, that trajectory across say your last three clubs, when you go from Germany to Celtic and then to Standard Liège, is there a sense, even compared to Germany, that Standard Liège is on a level above, or are Germany and Belgium together on maybe a pedestal above maybe what Celtic had available to you? Or what's the kind of breakdown in terms of what's been available to you in those three clubs?
Well, I think each club has been able to support in different areas. So whether if it is video analysis, the medical side of things, like here we have a nutritionist available to us that we meet as well, which I haven't had at the other clubs. Right. So it's like I'm saying, like it's slowly but surely things are improving, and hopefully it's the only way up.
Amber, what's been your experience playing on the continent?
Yeah, I think similar to Claire. I think that from the beginning, when I went to Cologne, I feel like there was it was for me definitely a step up of what I'd experienced in League of Ireland. I think the training regime, facilities available, I suppose access to, as Claire said, medical team, coaching staff was brilliant. And I think that, you know, every year in Cologne there was a step up every year, and I think the year after I left there was another step up, and since I've been gone a couple of years there's been another step up. So I think you don't always see the progress necessarily when you're there over time. And I think like in Potsdam, obviously, like I've spoken quite frequently about, you know, wasn't very, for me, such a positive experience, and there were still things in Potsdam I thought were very good, like all players were provided with housing, but then there was other sides of it, you know, maybe that, you know, let it down a wee bit. And I think similarly coming here that, you know, I think one of the things that we have been, you know, talking about for a long time is that, you know, not all of our staff are full-time, and for us that's something that I haven't experienced in the other clubs I've played in, where all the staff were full-time and available. If you wanted to do something at 9 o'clock on a Monday, they were there. If you wanted to do something at, you know, Tuesday at 6 o'clock, you could do it. And I think that's just probably something that we've taken a wee bit of time to get used to. But then, you know, we look at the facilities that we have, you know, like something as basic as when I was in Cologne, you did your own laundry after training, you took your clothes home with you. Whereas, you know, here it's set out for you as soon as you walk in the door after training the next day. So things like that there are definitely an improvement for me. But I think in general, like what Claire said, you know, when we were talking about the gap between, say, us and Anderlecht, I think one of them is the financial aspect, but also you have to look at the men's team. The Anderlecht men's team have been quite successful over the last few years, whereas the Standard Liège team haven't. And unfortunately, you know, women's football, when they're joined with men's teams, usually the success of the men's teams has a massive, you know, bearing effect on the women's team. And you know, I've seen the plans in place that they have, you know, here. Obviously, financially, the club is in difficulty in that they've just required a new owner. So it's those little moments where you'd love, you know, I'd love to see it with all the facilities are available. You know, there isn't financial constraints on the women's team, and I'd love to see where they go, because I do feel like the mindset to go on is here. And, you know, it's something that we can even say that from the first training session to this season has been brilliant, like the improvement we've seen in players and all. So it's just that the smaller things take up a lot of room sometimes. And, you know, we always say that, you know, if you manage the smaller issues, the big issues don't come into play then, you know, because we can't impact on the financial resources of the club. You know, that's nothing to do with us. But at the end of the day, we have to try and be as successful as we can for the club. And bringing the trophy home last week was, I think, you know, for us, it was a massive accomplishment.
It does sound like what's happening in Belgium and what's happening in Germany and your experiences in those two countries is not something that we could compare ourselves with in Ireland, but naturally Ireland is going to be front of mind when we're having these conversations. Have you experienced anything, Amber, even small things that aren't related to a whole pile of cash, that we could be doing better as a domestic league here in Ireland? And look, it's the front of our mind at the moment as well, because Rúis has come home and it's a brilliant boost for the league that's happened and all that. But have you seen any, I don't know, tricks of the trade when you've been abroad and you think to yourself, geez, that doesn't require a whole pile of money, we could actually be doing those simple things as well at home?
Well, I think definitely in standard, like I think that if you actually go through every player that is playing in Belgium now, and even players that have represented the Belgium international team, a lot of them have come through the standard academy. So a lot of the clubs here have academies from under 12 girls, and they go under 12, under 14, under 16, under 18, then they go to a second team, and then they go to the first team. And it is definitely clear to see, like, we play with a number of players, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 girls who've played here since under 12 and have played the whole way up. So I think that pathway to creating teams, not just going into, you know, a league that's, you know, I suppose like the League of Ireland, you could have played for Peamount since you're under 12 and under 14. But, you know, if you look at it, the training regimes don't really change from when you're under 12, 14, 16, 18 in Ireland. Like, it's usually 2 or 3 sessions a week. Whereas I know that even the likes of the under 12, under 14 girls are in 3, 4 nights a week here, and potentially having games at the weekend. So it's, for me, that's the biggest thing. But again, you need to have staff available to accommodate that. And I suppose that's something that, you know, we're very lucky here with the facilities as well. And I think that's probably another question. I definitely think facilities in Germany was a step ahead in some regards, but, you know, we have grass pitches, we have astro pitches, we have an indoor astro. So you can train regardless of the weather. And I think obviously in Ireland, we have the problem of, we have a lot of rain, and, you know, I think you have to look at facilities as well and providing people with space to play and opportunities to play, and not, you know, having an astro that, you know, when I played in Peamount, we used to split the astro in half. So whatever boys team could play on one side and you play on the other. And if you want to push on and push standards, you need to prioritise, and that just has to be the way it is. And if not, if one pitch isn't available, you have to really be thinking about building an additional ground somewhere so that everybody can have the chance to play.
And the frustrating thing about what you've just illustrated there, Amber, is that the fact of the matter is that if you're an 11, 12, 13-year-old girl in Belgium, you have a better opportunity of succeeding than if you're an 11, 12, 13-year-old girl in Ireland.
Honestly, I probably would say so. In terms of staying in the country, yes. Like, I think the chances of players playing in Belgium and playing in a competitive league here is definitely higher. You know, like I said, going through even the international team, there's a number of players in the international team who started their football in standard. So you can say that that pathway has been straight through, and they've played in Belgium all their life. And, you know, unfortunately for a lot of Irish players, they get to the stage of Women's National League, and most of the younger players that have the talent are usually looking abroad to make the big jump. Whereas players don't have to look to other countries. And again, we're very lucky with where we're based because we're so close to Germany, you're so close to France and the Netherlands, and I think that also is a factor. You know, you might only have to drive an hour over the border to be playing with your team as well. So I think there are definitely aspects of it that I think Belgium has, and, you know, I think it's something that I also think the Belgian FA have to improve on, because, you know, I think they don't also realise how lucky they are that they're in the middle of competitive leagues in the Netherlands and Germany and in France. And, you know, sometimes it's nice to have a wee look at how other countries are doing it, and, you know, maybe adding those platforms to your own country and seeing what you can do. And, you know, I think that's the only way any country with any league is going to develop.
Definitely. I presume you'd concur with a lot of that, Claire. I mean, I think one of the things that strikes me is that we're speaking to two people at the moment who've grown up in a place so far away from Dublin. And I guess if you're in Dublin as well, that's a thing that really benefits you. And I know, listen, when you get into the Wexford Youths setup, Claire, I'm sure that's the thing that takes your ability to form a career to the next level. But you might just chime in on that in terms of the pathways in Ireland, the academies or lack thereof, and what could be done better.
Yeah, well, I have to mirror everything that Amber has just touched on in terms of the academies and the facilities. They're most important, and having the coaches available to put on these sessions for these kids. For me, obviously, I grew up in Limerick in Newcastle West, and I started off playing GAA because that was what my family were into at the time, and I broke off then with my interest in playing football with the boys. But even through that pathway, now we've kind of bridged the gap of like younger age groups being developed for like my niece is 5 and 6, so she's been able to play on a Saturday and a Sunday back home, which is great. And I can see all the pictures and go to some of the awards that they have, and it's really nice. But of course, you just want more of that. And speaking about the facilities of having a grass pitch or a turf, you know, hearing stories from my sister about like training sessions being called off because of the weather, and they mightn't get a training session done for 3 and 4 weeks because there's nowhere indoor available for them to go and train. It's really disappointing. So, I mean, prioritizing what needs to be done is first and foremost, I think, because my pathway has been different than Amber's, and my eyes really opened up when I went to Carlow and what really was possible in women's football. And that's when I was able to join Wexford Youths. And just like when I came over to Duisburg, to Germany, like that, my eyes lit up. My eyes lit up when I went to Wexford Youths, because again, it was another step in the right direction. And it was like a wow thing to me to walk into Ferrycarrig Park and to see the clubhouse so big with the changing rooms and everything like that. So yeah, and I suppose you just want to like expose the younger generation to what is really possible. And there's a lot to be done, obviously, and everything takes a lot of time to get done. But you know, having the want and the desire, and you know, pursuing it really is one of the most important things. Because again, I've experienced a lot from being in Germany and then even going over to Celtic and seeing how things were run there, and coming here, and I see kids training 4 or 5 times a week when I was in Germany, in the snow even, and they loved it. And we had players on our team that they weren't fully professional, so they had to work, and they could be working 4 or 5 days a week, but then they'd come to training with us. And at the time, we were training in the evening time to allow for all those types of situations for personal reasons to be done. But they came to training 4 or 5 times a week, and then played a Bundesliga game on the weekend. So I suppose it's just having the structures in place, and you know, people having the passion and the desire enough to be able to go and do a training session after a full day's work. And it's a lot, and I have massive credit to people who do that. But again, being able to offer the support system for them to do it in what they need, you know, surrounding those types of schedules is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a couple of other things I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up. Amber, when it comes to the Republic of Ireland at the moment, we'll get your take on Louise Quinn, and we must pay tribute to her in just a moment. But just on your last outing, obviously, goals in back-to-back matches, is that a big game changer for you personally? Does that add to your confidence, or are you one of these players who's pretty level-headed, and however many goals you do score or don't score doesn't really affect your level of confidence?
No, I think definitely level-headed, but I think that obviously, I think firstly you have to get playing. And I think, you know, when I came here, my main priority was to play week in, week out, and something I've been able to do. And I felt like that's had a massive benefit then going into the international setup. And look, I've said it before, but I definitely have been frustrated over time with sometimes the lack of game time that I've got. But I'm very much a person that believes, and you also have to bide your time, and you never know how long it will be, and you never know how short it will be. But I've just felt that, you know, I've had an injury at the start of the season that really delayed, I suppose, my progress. And then I got over that, and then I just felt it was just hell for leather. And I think coming into the last few international games, I've just felt really good. I've trusted myself, and I definitely feel like Carla has given me that level of trust as well, which is also very refreshing. And I think then, you know, you give yourself an opportunity. I think when you come in good form and you're getting the basics right, I think then, you know, opportunities will come your way. And obviously to score the two games back to back on the 50th cap was obviously something very special. But, you know, I've been in the international setup a long time, so 50 took a lot of patience and a lot of biting your tongue sometimes. But I think, you know, sometimes you have to use that patience to drive you on as well, and, you know, not be, you know, resting on your laurels either.
I know you were speaking recently about the fact that there's been a few high-profile retirements, and that you found yourself almost occupying a place in the leadership vacuum that exists. So I guess that's just become more true today after Louise Quinn has announced her retirement. Amber, you've stepped one rung higher in the ladder and the leadership space.
Yeah, I think that definitely a lot of us had a feeling that Louise was going to make that decision. It was definitely a question of when. Obviously, she's just had a very important period in her life with the birth of her son Dara. And I think in moments like that, you also appreciate that there's more to life than playing football. And I can only say to Louise Quinn that she is, without doubt, one of the most influential, important leaders that Ireland has ever had, and in many regards, I think will ever have, because I think the people that have left us, the likes of Niamh Fahey, Diane Caldwell, Louise now, Julianne Russell, in many regards, believe they're irreplaceable. The role isn't irreplaceable, but them as humans is. And you'll never get somebody like Louise. What she did for her country, the level of commitment, the bravery with her to use her head in the most innocuous positions at any time. And I think that everybody talks about the World Cup. Obviously, it was brilliant for us to get there, but I have to go back to Scotland, and there were so many great aspects in that game, but Louise, Niamh, Diane did not let one ball get past them. They blocked every single thing, threw bodies on the line, took slaps. Louise never comes off the field without a black eye or a bump somewhere, and she just pulls on and goes again. And it's an honour to have played with her. It's an honour to have shared a dressing room with her, and she will be sorely, sorely missed. And no more Big Lou. So we'll have to find another seat in the back of the bus for someone new.
Claire, on Louise as a defender, one of the greats of the modern era, certainly that have worn a Republic of Ireland shirt.
I mean, what can you say? She's an amazing person, first and foremost. She's always up for a bit of banter, which is always really nice. She was very welcoming to me when I first came into the squad, and I think for me, obviously, when I transitioned from a striker to a defender, I looked at Louise and Niamh and Diane, because they were the stone walls at the back, and they had so much experience playing in different teams, different countries, that I was able to tune into and to learn from. And all three of them, and Louise especially, such a professional in everything that she did and how she handled herself, from breakfast till midnight snack. It was a joy to be beside her in the changing room and to share a pitch with her as well, and to be able to learn so much from her, because she has so much to give the team. And like Amber said, the leader that she was, she was always giving advice, always communicating so well and so clear, which can be really difficult during a game or in moments. But there was a lot of moments that I shared with her that I was really, really proud to play beside her. And the one thing that really stands out to me was when they did the video for her 100 cap. I'm not a person who gets very emotional, like Amber crying out when we're watching a sad movie or something. But I wouldn't. But I can remember they did up a video for Louise, and they went through her career, and I was just sitting there, and I was just like, I'm so lucky to be sitting beside her and playing beside her, because the career that she has had is amazing, and anyone would be so lucky to have had that. So all I can say is happy retirement, Louise, and I hope that whatever comes next will be just as great.
For sure. Yeah, I think anybody who's been a spectator would understand that she is an absolute legend of Irish football. But hearing from the two of you today has just hammered home just what a legend she is behind closed doors as well, and that almost speaks volumes more so about the woman that she is as well. So happy retirement indeed. I doubt her retirement's going to involve much that isn't to do with football. I dare say she might have a future in the game as well. But Amber, Claire, thanks so much for being so generous with your time this afternoon. Congratulations again on the cup win last week, and good luck against Anderlecht over the next couple of games.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Football on Off the Ball.
With William Hill, you can boost your winnings on every game with new Bet Builder Extra. Only with William Hill. Download the app today. 18+, gamblingcare.ie.
This is News Talk.